before. We're going to get serious in the newspapers now, though, aren't we, Flo? You're talking today about Germany. Emotions running very high there after the story we were bringing you this time yesterday. In fact, the Afghan teenager who carried out this axe attack on a train in Bavaria on Monday, injuring 4 people there.
That's right. Huge story in Germany, as you can imagine. Der Spiegel says this time horror took the form of a 17-year-old war refugee armed with an axe and a knife. Now, authorities are still trying to piece things together, but it appears this lone wolf radicalized rapidly. Witnesses say, for instance, he yelled, Allahu Akbar, God is great, before carrying out the attacks. Also, the authorities say they found a hand-painted ISIS flag in his room. But Der Spiegel asks a very important question. Does this make him a terrorist? Essentially, when is a terrorist a terrorist? That's what they're trying to figure out. And this is something that we've been discussing here in France following the Nice attack. It really raises the question, what is the boundary between kind of a lunatic's rampage, deadly, public suicide, and a real terrorist attack? It's a real question.
The Germans' paper's really focusing on the consequences of this attack on the population. Rising fears, of course, that there could be even more attacks to come now.
That's right. Die Welt has a very interesting piece today that says that, fear is really spreading across Germany. There's a fear that a similar attack could happen to any woman, every man, every child, day or night. The last time the country felt this kind of fear was actually during World War II. It felt this kind of fear, but also the desire not to be defeated, not to, to keep surviving, essentially. Now, Die Welt points out that the problem with what it calls the suicide cult that is the Islamic State group is that it has a considerable effect on very unstable people, especially from the Muslim culture. And Die Welt says, a lot of refugees who are in Germany right now are very traumatized from what they've experienced because of the wars they've been through, etc. And they are Muslim. And so Die Welt says, it's very important for authorities not to make any shortcuts, not to get lost in the fog, especially given the context of the refugee crisis in Germany.
What's the solution then, Flo? The papers are talking a lot about that, aren't they?
Well, that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung says, here's what the solution isn't, and that is more police. The axe attack shows that Germany's integration policy is really reaching its limits, and that's really where the solution is going to be, according to the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. This is going to be the real test. Is the country going to be able to put in place a real integration policy, especially a policy that will take care of the thousands of unaccompanied minors? Because this young teenager, for instance, was reportedly arrived in Germany unaccompanied. Very interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal about this issue as well. You can see it talks about how this rampage highlights the susceptibility of migrant youths who are particularly vulnerable to crime and radical extremist groups.
Let's move on to some other news now. Turkey continues to be in the spotlight. This, of course, in the wake of last weekend's failed coup.
That's right, and the post-coup purge is continuing, getting a lot of attention. You can see here the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. It talks about how Turkey is widening the hunt for suspects after members of the military, the police, and the justice system. Teachers are being targeted. Nearly 17,000 teachers and administrators have essentially been sacked. Now, what is going on behind all this? Very interesting piece in Al Safir, that is a Lebanese paper, that says that the President Erdogan's guillotine is continuing to come down. There's no stopping him. Up to 50,000 people have been arrested or sacked. What's the point of this campaign of repression? Is it a show of strength or is it a show of weakness? Well, Al Safir hasn't really made up its mind, but it says that it's very serious indeed.
Meanwhile, WikiLeaks, they've started publishing 300,000 internal emails from Erdogan's AKP party.
That's right. They're calling it the Erdogan emails. You can read about it in The Independent. It's a response to this purge. Erdogan said that he wanted to rid the public bodies of the virus responsible for the revolt. And so WikiLeaks says this is their response. So 300,000 emails, 500,000 unspecified documents that are going to reveal the truth, reportedly, but behind Turkey's political structure. It could be very devastating and further divides within Turkey. There's an interesting cartoon that you can see in Bild that actually was tweeted by WikiLeaks. You can see here Erdogan depicted as a sultan here, writing on this. It's not a magic carpet, it's an email from the AKP, completely wrecking Turkish democracy here.
And finally, a word on the Republican National Convention. Yesterday, of course, Donald Trump formally endorsed as the Republican candidate. The papers, though, are still focusing on his wife, Melania, and that speech she gave.
That's right. I was telling you about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Papers are up in arms because it seems she might have drawn some inspiration or perhaps plagiarized parts of Michelle Obama's speech from 2008. Well, Time points out that this whole outrage over Michelle's speech was a ploy to prevent us from realizing that she was Rickrolling us. Now, what is Rickrolling? Well, it's one of Internet's oldest traditions. It's essentially pranking someone by quoting Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up." And let's listen to Melania's speech. You'll see it. It really it'll spark some tunes in your head. Let's listen.
He will never ever give up. And most importantly, he will never ever let you down.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
Everyone at the convention had that song in their head all day long, and now we will as well.
If only she'd said never going to turn around as well. That really would have been the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? Thank you, Flo. No made-up speeches from Flo, of course. All perfectly true in the papers today. Thanks a lot.